guys? Welcome back. Deshaun Jackson's getting some workouts this week, so we thought we're going to honor him and also the undefeated Eagles. We're here for week 7.
A lot of bye weeks this week. Should be pretty interesting. We're also joined behind the camera by Bobby. Those of you who know Bobby, he wordles and drives. That's Bobby.
That is Bobby. So.
He might chip in a little bit here and there. Who knows?
I'm waving.
He's waving.
He's waving right now.
Wave back, damn it.
All right, let's get into the news.
We're back with the news. A couple trades to get into. The first one we got going is Trevor and Ethan made a trade. Trevor received Noah Fant, a 2024 second and a 2024 third, in exchange for Juju Smith-Schuster. That's a pretty fair deal, I think. I mean, Juju had a big week this week. I don't know if that's sustainable throughout the year. It kind of just seems like which one of these non-Kelsey people is Mahomes going to throw to today?
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely big for Ethan to get Juju. Probably helped him win this week. Fant put up like 10 points. He's been like a backup tight end option. I don't think he's really earned to be a starter yet, but the second and the third on top of it for Juju, I think it's a pretty fair deal all around. Juju will have some ups and downs, but it's whatever.
Absolutely. And we had a Steve trade as well. I'm scrolling down to just make sure I get it right. A couple Steve trades, actually. The first one was he gave Cherry Tyler Conklin and a 2025 third in exchange for new Arizona Cardinals wide receiver Robbie Anderson. This could go okay. I just kind of see it as like a, nothing trade.
Yeah, I mean, Cherry really didn't have anything at the tight end position. I don't know who he started this week, and that's saying something since I know most players. So I think Conklin, he's kind of slowed down a little bit, got off to a really hot start, a lot of targets, but with Wilson, it's kind of slowed down a little bit. Robbie, we'll see if he kind of takes in that like Marquise role while he's hurt, or kind of what happens there. Will probably be better than he was in Carolina, probably. But I don't know. It's pretty fair deal. Nothing really groundbreaking.
Exactly. And the last deal was between Jasmus and Steve. Jasmus received Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he sent over to Steve a 2023 second and Tyler Lockett. I actually really like this deal for both teams. Lockett was a guy that wasn't getting into Jas's lineup because it was so good, and he was an asset that I think it was good to trade, and he gets Edwards-Helaire, who is a running back, which he also needs. Definitely a low floor, high ceiling player. He doesn't really play a ton of snaps, but when he gets involved in the offense like he had been the first couple weeks, he did average like 20 points.
Yeah, I don't know if Clyde's start of the season was ever really looked at as sustainable. So I think he's kind of coming more back to earth now. I don't probably have some 20 weeks, but also some of these like 5-point weeks. Probably average more around that like 10, depending on if he finds the end zone or not. Lockett, he's looked pretty good this year. He's wide receiver 14 on the year. Plus Steve gets a second in return. I think I like this one more for Steve as he gets the better wide receiver. Lockett's always been kind of that like boom or bust type thing where he either puts up like 5 or like 20. So I think that definitely helps Steve's weaker wide receiver room. Jasmus does get the depth RB. Don't know if it will necessarily be a starter for him, but RBs with injuries, who knows what could happen. So I think I think I lean towards Steve in this one.
I lean towards Steve too. I was talking to him about this last night, and I said I do like the deal for his team. I think he gets the safer player in the deal, which is what he kind of needs right now. I think as we saw these over the last 2 weeks, his whole team has kind of been boom or bust. He puts up, high 120s 2 weeks in a row. Then this week I don't think he broke 100.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if either player are necessarily too safe. I think they both have a pretty big or high chance of just busting on the week. But I think Steve, with Jones and Cook, and even Jeff Wilson now, who had a bad week last week but can be a decent starter, needed the receiver help more than the RB help. So flip one of the like flex RB guys you play for a receiver. I think it makes sense. The second on top, as you're getting older with Lockett, who's like 30, 31, for Clyde, who's like 24, you get a second round pick that you could flip for another asset or try to target someone younger in this draft.
Absolutely. I think that's all the trades that happened before we recorded. So we'll send it over to Adam for the injuries.
The big one this week was Marquise Hollywood Brown. He had a foot injury. Thought it was going to be for the season. Turns out it's only going to be for like 6 weeks, they're saying. So he could be back even before the fantasy playoffs. He was having a dominant year. Was looking like, I think he was putting up wide receiver 1 numbers throughout this whole year. Having games with like over 10 targets a few times. So he was really playing well. Tough to see him go down for Cherry's team. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he was doing really well, especially with Hopkins missing time. Like we said, the Cardinals traded for Robbie Anderson. I don't think he's going to be that involved this week because they play Thursday. It's a short week. He just got there. If they do send him out there, it might just be a run-and-go route or be a distraction. I definitely boost the Rondale Moore stock a little bit, I think, because he had already been getting about 8 to 10 targets a week, at least the 2 games he's played this year, with Marquise Brown. Hopkins coming back, kind of put that into question, but now with Marquise going down, does that target share stay sustainable? Or does Robbie Anderson eventually eat into that? So I think it's definitely interesting, but I'm also happy Hollywood's a guy I like. He's not going to be done for the year.
Yeah. Wentz, it was like a finger injury, I think. He's going to miss probably about 4 or 6 weeks. I don't know. Was it the same as what happened to Dak?
I believe so.
Or
fractured
similar
finger,
to that. So he's going to be out there. They said they're going with Heineke instead of Howell. Figured they'd kind of probably try to give the young guy a shot.
Yeah, you'd think.
But who knows with Ron. He's been a little questionable with who he's been playing. So, kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Wentz isn't really... He's okay for fantasy, but not a real-life good QB.
Yeah.
I think it was worth mentioning that Jonathan Taylor, he was out again 2 weeks in a row. Does that mean it was more of like a high ankle sprain? Is it going to be like kind of he's going to be questionable every week, so then it's like the team they're facing has to kind of game plan for him, and then he's out? Will he miss like 4 weeks? Will he be back this week? Kind of thought he'd be ready to go, but he was not, so got to see if he's active this week. But that was worth monitoring. Also, just every Panthers quarterback is hurt.
Yep.
Except for Jacob Eason.
Yeah.
So.
Don't remind me.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
Russ is getting an MRI in his hamstring. He hasn't been playing great anyway. The Broncos haven't looked great, but we'll definitely have to see if that's...
Last night's Monday Night Football game was just a mid-off.
Yeah, that's every Broncos game this year.
Yeah.
Hackett is not a good coach.
Hackett versus Staley. Like, who decided to put that on primetime?
Who put the Broncos on primetime every week?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
And then 2 non-injury stuff, but Hopkins, we kind of talked about it. He's coming back from suspension, so he will play this week, it's looking like. So
I think he had been practicing all 7 weeks. Obviously, just couldn't suit up for the game. So I don't, like I said, with like maybe with Robbie sitting out because of a short week, I don't think that's going to be the case for Hopkins. I think that he's already kind of up to game speed. Maybe it's a little slower coming into Thursday.
Yeah, see if there's any like rust, because he was hurt a little bit last year and then missing the preseason and these 6 weeks. This is his first time out there. I think he's been dominant in the past. I don't know if he'll be that same level, but I think he should be a big part of that offense. Probably
Absolutely.
the number 1 target there. So we'll see. And then also the Cam Akers news, where the Rams are basically done with him, kind of sent him home, and are trying to look for some sort of trade partner. I don't know what team that would be right now. Could be the Bills. They've been in talks about running backs a lot. Could be anyone. I don't even know if wherever he goes, he hasn't looked great this year, will even carve out a role or not. But that's just something to monitor if you are Griff.
Yeah.
But I think that's it for news and injuries and stuff. So time for the power rankings.
Let's do it.
Post Week 6 power rankings. Here we are. Number 12, we have Matt. Matt's averaging 60 points in his last 3 weeks, so I'm gonna say it. That's that's not
great.
Not too great.
Bob, any thoughts on that?
He can start players that are actually playing. Does he know that?
He is.
That's
crazy.
His whole lineup played.
That's ridiculous.
Don't think we have a.
Who's his best player?
Amon-Ra.
Wow.
And then Daniel Bellinger. He activated off the taxi and he played pretty well. So that's, I guess, the bright spot for Matt.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's really nothing. Don't think we need to stay on this too long.
I also had Matt at 12.
Number 11, we have Cherry. Cherry played Matt this week, so we got a win. Advanced to 2-4. Cherry, he started Quentin Morris. That was the tight end that Cherry started this week.
What did he do?
He played 16% of snaps, and that was it. Marquise Brown, obviously the injury hurts him, was his best player so far this year. Godwin had 6 catches for 95. T. Higgins looked all right when he played, and Claypool had a big game. So, and can't even forget about Kenneth Walker. Again, he had kind of just a big run and then a few okay runs in there, but a big run and a touchdown, put up 19 points. So, pretty good play for the rookie there. Not having the best year as a team, but can still win games with this lineup, and not losing Marquise for the whole year definitely helps.
Absolutely. I also had Cherry at 11. He won. Wasn't really pretty, but, a win is a win is a win is a win.
Indeed. Number 10, you.
Hello. I also have myself at 10.
You are 1-5, so you do have the worst record than both of them, but you did score more points on the season than both of them. Matt's at 501. This next closest is Cherry with 652, so that just kind of shows that your Matt's 7. You're next with 672.
Yeah, I got the Ethan experience this week. I played somebody. I had the 4th most points scored this week. Played Ethan, who scored, I think, the 2nd most. So, Ethan, I know how it feels. Hopefully that win changes your luck for you the rest of the year, because no man should have to go through this.
Yeah, you really had nothing on your bench, but I thought your starting lineup played pretty well all the way through. Guys were getting in the teens.
If I somehow was Nostradamus and I played Tyquan Thornton off the taxi squad to David Montgomery, I win, but...
Yeah, but then that's like saying if he plays Lawrence instead of Rodgers, he gets an extra...
Yeah.
However many points. But, Hall looks like a stud. Gabe Davis keeps catching touchdowns, so he keeps putting up big points. And then the rest of the team played all right. So, not the worst team, but the 1-5 record definitely hurts. So,
yeah,
that's where you're there. 9, we have Evan. He's 2-4. He lost this week to me. He put up 105 points. Team didn't play horribly. Zeke looked pretty good, which is an upgrade. Miles Sanders still played well, scored a touchdown. Waddle had 129 yards. The issues here was Mike Williams. It kind of looks like whoever Surtain goes up against, he kind of shuts him down this year. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league and has been shutting down other teams' top receivers, and that was Mike Williams this week. Only 2 catches for 17 yards. Curtis Samuel also had a pretty bad week. He dropped what would have been a pretty big touchdown and had a few more drops in there. Didn't look great. But Paris Campbell had a big week. We finally got the Paris Campbell breakout that we've all been waiting for. But yeah,
Just 3 years too late.
the thing here too, Melvin Gordon, I think we thought was going to have a bigger role. 3 carries in the first quarter and then nothing for the rest of the game. They're going with Lat Murray and Mike Boone over Melvin Gordon. So
I think he actually tweeted out, he's like, it was a close game. Wish I could have done. I thought I could help, but I guess not, or whatever. So maybe he's another running back that could be on the trade block.
or just cut.
That too.
I heard rumors that if Javonte was still healthy, that they were looking at cutting Melvin Gordon. So who knows what's going to happen there. But I still think Evan has a solid team. He will be getting Hopkins back this week. So I think that'll add to this receiver room. Probably take over Curtis Samuel.
Probably.
And fill in that role there.
I also had Evan at 9 in mine.
8, I have Zach. Zach is, I think, just bad at setting his lineup. I think that's his main issue. He picked up Deion Jackson like 2 weeks ago. Without Taylor last week, he put up 13 points, looked pretty good. Didn't play him this week. He put up 28.1. Started the likes of Dobbins, who ended up, I think, getting hurt a little, like a minor injury. I think missed like the second half or something. Also Elijah Moore, who didn't even get targeted. If Deion Jackson's in there, he wins. I was thinking that he would play him. Didn't. I guess it's not the safest play. It is Deion Jackson.
Yeah.
But that goes in. McCaffrey finally had a good game. Burrow looked pretty good too. He had over 30 points. The rest of the team all kind of put up in that like 10 range. Did all right. It's been definitely a very disappointing year for Zach this year. A lot of games that were winnable that he's just coming up on the wrong end of. Gotta turn this season around soon.
Yeah, I had Zach actually at 6. I thought that, for the power rankings at least, I thought that his team is better than they've played. I think he's better than his record reflects. So I had James and Steve below him.
Yeah, I can agree with that for Zach, but it gets to a point where it's like, you can't always just be like, man, he's playing good, just not getting it. It does need to translate to wins. We'll see if he could do that this week. 7, I did have James. James, another sub 100 week. So he seems to either do pretty good or under 100, which, nice shot,
Nice
Bobby.
shot.
Fournette has looked really good. Hunt had a really bad game, and all the rookie receivers kind of did.
Yeah.
Dobbs kind of shut down by the Jets. London didn't do much against the 49ers, even in a big win. And Pickens, they did lose Pickett for a little bit, but he didn't have the best game. His team, I think there's definitely a lot of promise here with this young team. It's going to be ups and downs for, I think, a lot of this season.
Yeah, like I said, I think last episode or 2 episodes ago, for James's team, I think the biggest thing you want to see is consistency, and
That's not what we're seeing at this point.
at the moment, no. He had 2 good weeks in a row, followed up by this stinker. I don't think he even had that many people on a bye.
He did miss Pierce and Cooks.
Okay,
So I think Pierce is definitely has a big role on this team as that running back. Cooks also a more established, consistent receiver. Hunter Renfrow too, who's kind of missed time already this year. We'll see if when they're back he looks better or not, but yeah, I think a lot of ups and downs.
All right.
6, I have Steve. Steve also kind of put up a stinker this week. Jeff Wilson put up 0.5 points. Clyde only put up 3.3. Aaron Jones also only put up 7. Kelsey obviously put up almost 20.
What else is new?
Clearly his best player. Just a really disappointing week from basically everyone minus Kelsey. He did add Lockett, so we'll see if Lockett has some of those boom weeks, can get him some points, and Robbie Anderson if he fills in partially that Marquise Brown role and can put up like 10 a game there, can fit him in as a receiver. It's if these running backs don't turn it around, which I think are the strength of his team with Cook and Aaron Jones, I think they really need to carry with Kelsey, those weaker receiver room, but kind of got to just see how that goes.
Yeah, I did have Steve at 7. I did take into account that, yeah, Zach has a worse record, but he did, at least break 100 this week. I think that might be the biggest drop this week. I think Steve was 3 last week in the official power rankings, and he's 6, so one of the bigger drops, I should say.
Yeah, he did have Robert Woods on a bye, who was also probably normally a starter for him, but Woods is averaging like 9 points a game, so it really hasn't been lighting the world on fire.
Yeah.
Number 5, I think we talked about the biggest drop. We have the biggest riser. I have Ethan up at 5. Ethan got the pretty big win over you, second most points scored this week, and he did it with a lot of his guys like Olave out, Pat F also out, Hawkinson on a bye. I think he kind of made do with not his ideal lineup and still put together a really big week. Trading for Juju was huge, putting up 22.3 points.
I didn't know that he couldn't be tackled.
Jamar Chase put up 32, finally had a really big week there. Even though Chubb didn't play great, he still managed to pull out a pretty big win and put up pretty good numbers. So
yeah, this was a really weird fantasy week, or really low scoring, I should say. I think the first couple weeks we saw people teams consistently breaking 140, 150, and this week we only had one team get into the 140s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean, guess which team that was?
So for number 4, I have myself. I put up 116 points. I thought my team overall played pretty well. Sutton, who's been a more consistent contributor for me, only put up 3.4. Not great. DJ Moore, obviously, with PJ Walker and Jacob Eason, only put up 3.
Yeah, I don't know what Ben McAdoo was doing that game. For those who don't know, I am a Panthers fan. Yes, I'm sad. Don't console me. It's like McAdoo forgot that PJ Walker has been a competent starter in the past, and it's oh, it's 3rd down and literally any distance. Let's just throw a screen pass. It's no. That's not we do, or shouldn't do every time. Maybe a couple times. Panthers didn't get a first down from their first drive to one of their last drives of the fourth quarter, which is not ideal. Why is Ben McAdoo still here? Enough of that.
I saw something that DJ Moore had 127% of their air yards because he had 34, and as a team they only had 20.
Yep.
So not a lot of passing offense in that game at all.
Nope.
Saquon obviously is putting up a great year, really consistent. And then Wandale in his first game looked pretty good as a rookie. Had a few plays kind of schemed up for him, big 3rd down catches and a touchdown. I think his role will probably grow in the future there.
Yeah.
Have to see. I think the big thing with my team is just still kind of surviving for these weeks. Swift waiting for him to come back. Michael Thomas waiting for him to come back. Even Burks waiting for him to get healthy and hopefully carve out a role. I think that's my team's just kind of trugging along until they get healthy.
Yeah, I also had you at 3. What I believe is your 3 at 4.
Yeah, my 3 was indeed Trevor. Trevor got the win this week, and he did it with Michael Pittman having a dominant week. A.J. Brown also had a really good week with a touchdown. Mixon looked good, had a touchdown. And the rest of his team really didn't even play that great. I think he was missing Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor, obviously, 2 of the better running backs in the league. Also was missing Waller at his tight end position. Instead, he had to go with Ingram, who still put up a respectable 9 points.
Yep.
He's still super deep, super talented, how he could still put out a pretty strong lineup, even though a lot of them kind of underperformed this week. Kind of been a trend with Trevor, but he's still, if you look at the standings and the total points for, he's still the 2nd highest in the league. So he's putting up the points to win games, and I think The thing with him, if you look at Trevor's schedule, I think he goes 5-0 in his next 5 games. He has Griff with Jefferson and Josh Allen on a bye. Then he has Matt. Then he has me with like Saquon, Kittle, and DJ Moore on a bye or something like that. Then he has Matt again, and then he has you. So Trevor could definitely rip off 5 straight wins here and be sitting really pretty going into that last stretch of the season. And I think that's the whole turn this 3-3 record into probably like a 8-3 at worst 7-4.
Yeah. I think there's not much to say. Wide receiver U potentially still runs this league.
Two, we got Griff. Griff 5-1 continues to pull out these wins. Josh Allen, obviously Josh Allen. Jefferson put up 16.7, which is a good week. Not great for him or anything, but still good. And then Kamara, I think, he had 23 last week, 18 this week. He's finally starting to put some good games together, kind of finding his role.
Kind of stringing them together, like.
Yeah, Mark Andrews, obviously still. I think he's probably tight end 2 on the year. Putting together another great season. The issue here, I think, Garrett Wilson has kind of gone to sleep with Zach Wilson. Zach's not really throwing as much or getting as many yards as Flacco was. They've also kind of been winning games now, so not always in the negative game script to force Zach Wilson to throw the ball, and just Hall's been doing so good on the ground. Same thing with Carter adding a lot. They've been focused more on rushing. I think they rushed it over 60% of the snaps last game, so hard to have a dominant receiver when you're only passing like in the 30%. It'll be interesting to see how this team goes forward. Their bench is definitely iffy, with Akers kind of being out of there, loses some RB depth. He does have Latavius Murray, who I guess is the Broncos' lead back, maybe. Tough to see. He does have a really tough matchup this week with no Allen and Jefferson, which we'll talk about in matchup rankings. But
Yep. And also, as we said, he's facing Trevor, so he's playing a team like Matt where you can get away with having a bye like that.
yeah, it'll be tough for him. I still think he's a really good team and will be fighting for that one spot. He is up 2 games on Trevor. I think Trevor might kind of make those up in these few weeks, as Griff has. I don't remember every matchup he has, but I think it's a few hard games in a row here. And then it'll be, I think he might have like Jasmus, Trevor, like Steve in these few weeks. So it's not anything that you could just guarantee a win with. And then got to move forward. And I think this last 4 weeks of the season will be a pretty big Griffin versus Trevor fighting for that 1 seed. And then obviously number 1, we have Jasmus.
Yeah. Again, good team, scored points, got win.
6-0. He played Josh Kelly as his RB2. He played 2% of snaps, got hurt, put up 0 points, and he still broke 140, was the highest score in the league. So he's gotten people putting up zeros. Lockett put up 3.
Life is weird.
Kupp, Diggs, and Tyreek and Eckler. It's just
not fair.
Yeah. Good job, Jasmus. Clap it up for Jasmus, the Week 6 champion of the world. All right, let's get into matchup
previews. We'll see you there. All right, we're back with not only matchup previews, but also friend of the program, Bobby.
How's it going?
He's going to join us for this segment and make the picks along with us. Last week, Adam, we thought, hey, we're going to switch it up, maybe get some different results. We both went 3-3. I didn't calculate our all-time records, but they're definitely something. They'll be up here. You can see them. You guys can read them.
But with 3 more on each side.
Yeah. Also, A&W root beer.
Yeah, I just pointed for the sponsorship.
Oh, yeah, cool.
A&W since 1919.
That's pretty. You're drinking a 100-year-old beer, root beer.
Yep.
Damn. Let's just, I guess, hop right into it. Because we tied, Adam has the first pick this week. He chose to pick the Devil Rays versus wide receiver U, or Griffin versus Trevor. Let me scroll down to my notes in that game. So, not really a matchup in this one. And it is two of the top teams. Probably matchup of the week worthy. Griffin is going to be missing Jefferson and Josh Allen. And that's going to definitely hurt him. We're going to see if Jonathan Taylor plays. I think he's still questionable at this point. But the players I do like is Mostert versus Pittsburgh. And I also just like, I think all three of Trevor's starting wide receivers have really good matchups this week. I don't like P.J. Walker because, Panthers offense. And even if Jonathan Taylor does play against Tennessee, not a fan of that matchup either. And also just Darnell Mooney. He did a little better last week, but doesn't have a great matchup, and the Bears offense is something, man.
Yeah, it's not something good.
So, Bobby, who are you taking?
I'm going to have to go with wide receiver university for a few reasons.
You want to?
No.
No,
Okay.
just
Adam,
some reasons.
who are you taking?
I'm also going with Trevor, wide receiver U. I think that just the thing is, Griff currently doesn't have a quarterback if PJ Walker doesn't play. So then he'd have to go with the waiver wire and Taylor Heineke, which would be something. Even if PJ Walker plays, it's still not really ideal compared to Trevor having Lamar. And then just with Jefferson on the bench too. I think that's obviously one of his most consistent players. He still has like a really consistent piece in Mark Andrews and other guys that can play well, but I think Trevor's lineup this week especially is just better than Griff's, and I think he got to the win.
And let's not forget that Evan Ingram actually guaranteed a win against the Giants back in the day, so
All right.
should be a huge game out of him.
One might think. So I would have also taken Trevor, but I cannot. I must take Griffin. And yeah, I can. If PJ Walker decides to go off against Tampa Bay, maybe there's a chance there. But I definitely think Trevor's roster this week is a lot better. So that moves on to my first matchup I chose, and happens to be Jasmus versus Adam. Adam trying to stay alive in the upper echelon of the league so far. I actually like whoever Adam starts at QB this week. I think the three that were there all have pretty good matchups. I think when I did this, you didn't have it set when I wrote this, so I was like, all right, there's three of them.
I don't know if Zach Wilson versus Denver is a good
Oh,
matchup.
not the other two. I didn't think you were going to start Zach Wilson.
That's a good point.
I was like, yeah, he's probably going to start Dak or your other guy, Gino. So like either way, I like their matchups. I also like Saquon versus Jacksonville and Kittle versus Kansas City. As for Jasmus, I really like Tyreek versus Pittsburgh, Njoku versus Baltimore, and Jacobs versus Houston. People I don't like, Clyde versus SF. San Francisco's been pretty decent against the run this year. And even if Mike Thomas plays, I do not like him against Arizona. So, Bobby.
So Tua might be coming back this week, if I'm hearing correctly. We got Tyreek, that kind of increases his value for me. But I'm liking Adam here.
Wow.
I'm liking
Thanks,
the Saquon matchup. A little biased, but Kittle picked it up this week. I'm liking Adam.
All right. I actually am going to take Jasmus here. I think, again, like I said last week, when Jasmus is on the board, you can't pick against him.
So I guess I'm backing myself, and I honestly don't hate it. I think I have some good matchups. I'm also very lucky that Diggs and Kupp are both on bye. I think those are usually like half of his points without that. Depends on if Connor plays. They are on the short week. So if he has to miss Thursday, even against New Orleans, I think is a pretty tough matchup. He'd have to go to like Sony Michel. That would be a fun start for him. Or he could go to Matt Collins again. Either way, I don't think it's great. Obviously, Tyreek, Jacobs, Eckler are all going to go crazy. But I think I do. I think if there's a week to beat Jasmus, it's this week. And as long as like Swift plays, MT plays, which are kind of still up in the air right now, I think I have a fighting chance against them. So I hope I can take down,
The
give
juggernaut.
Jasmus that first loss.
Give us something to talk about at the end of the power ranking segment.
Indeed.
All right, so the next matchup that Adam chose was my matchup. I'm taking on Matt and what I'm calling the Bipocalypse week. I have Hurts, Gabe Davis, Devin Singletary, and Irv Smith on bye. All of those are starters, and I think also Kenneth Gainwell on the bench too. He wasn't really in the lineup. This matchup might combine for maybe 90 points between the two teams. Players I do like happens to be the two stars of each team. I like Debo versus Kansas City, and I like Amon-Ra versus Dallas. I also like Chark if he plays. Chark was like questionable or was listed as questionable like 5 minutes after Monday Night Football ended last night. I was like, what is this? They haven't practiced yet.
Yeah.
Who I don't like either Chicago running backs against New England, and I do not like Mariota versus Cincinnati. So, Bobby, who are you taking? And remember that your answer does require if you're ever coming back here. So choose wisely.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to go with Ryan in that case.
No, I'm kidding. Who do you
I
actually
love.
think is going to
I'm,
win?
I'm gonna stick with Ryan. I love the strategy of starting both running backs for the New York Jets, and Taysom Hill. That's really appealing. Benjamin and DJ Chark. That's what I got.
All right, Adam, who are you taking?
I'm also going with you. I think
Fuck.
your team is more likely to put up 70 than Matt's team, who hasn't done that in weeks. Amon-Ra being back will probably be a lot of his points, and just,
Thrilling matchup.
yeah, this will be a must-watch. This
Kendrick
is the
Turf
Broncos in prime time. That's what this game
Yeah.
is.
I think I said this a couple weeks ago. This matchup's going to be a movie, and when I say movie, I mean Adam Sandler's Jack and Jill.
Yeah, it's,
Just bad.
yeah, but I got you.
Okay. Well, I'm forced to take Matt. It's very doable. If Amon-Ra comes back and decides to go for 50 again, I'm probably fucked.
Will it happen? Who knows?
Probably not. So the next matchup that I chose is like my last pick that I willingly take was Evan versus Steve, the Anteaters versus the Cranberries. I'm calling this one the fight for the lost roles because all four running backs that they have there have questionably lost their job. I do like Herbert versus Seattle, Zeke versus Detroit, and Lockett versus the Chargers. Like I said, Robbie Anderson probably doesn't play, and if he does, it won't be much because, again, you got like 3 days to learn an entirely new offense. Then again, Cliff Kingsbury does run like the most vanilla offense in the NFL, so maybe it's not that hard to get into. Do not like Wilson against the Jets, and I do not like either of their two tight ends matchups. I think, obviously Kelsey is still Travis Kelsey. Just not a great matchup against San Francisco. And New Orleans seems to do pretty well against tight ends in Ertz's case. Bobby, who do we have here?
I think I'm gonna have to go with the Anteaters. Looks like a favorite to me. Like I said earlier, Tua might be coming back. Hopefully, increases Waddle's value for me. Mike Williams, not a great week this past week. Nice little bounce back for him. That running back room's a little questionable, but I'm still going with the Anteaters.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I'm also taking the Anteaters here. I just like a lot of their matchups better, and the wide receiver room as well.
Yeah, so I guess I'm going with Steve.
Ignore that I'm wearing a Cape Cod sweatshirt.
I do think there is a very possible way Steve wins. I'd probably have taken Evan, but Melvin Gordon, if he puts up another
Dud.
0.8 point week and doesn't really
Baby.
play. Zeke finally had a big week. Will he go back to kind of that like 5 points? Waddle probably goes crazy. Same thing with like Mike Williams, but who knows with these other receivers. And there's always just the opportunity. Maybe Aaron Jones finally bounces back here. Lockett could have a boom week, especially against the Chargers secondary with J.C. Jackson, who gave up 205 yards last night or something. If he's on DK or Lockett, the passing offense there could definitely be good, and Kelsey could always combine for 30. So I think there is a way Steve wins, but I think it requires some really big boom weeks from his guys.
I'd have to agree with you there. And Adam's final pick was James versus Cherry, or the Connecticut Crusade versus the Providence Steamrollers. Players I do like in this matchup, I like Kenneth Walker versus the Chargers. I like Higgins versus Atlanta. I like Kareem Hunt versus Baltimore, and George Pickens versus Miami, whose secondary has not been playing like I think people thought they would. But Xavier Howard, Noah Igbenogany. That's Auburn legend right there. Not a fan of Mahomes versus San Francisco in that matchup, or Pierce versus Vegas, or Jamal Williams versus Dallas. Bobby, who do we think here?
Go back up. I'm gonna go with the upset here. I'm gonna go with the Steamrollers. Whoever that is.
Cherry.
Let's go Cherry. You haven't had the best season so far. I got your back on this one. Thinking Godwin has a nice week. Higgins, Walker, I got you in this one.
I'm actually going to go with James, though. I do think Cherry's good players have pretty good matchups. The Walker matchup. I like the T. Higgins versus Atlanta. I like Godwin versus Carolina. But then it's what's Gibson's role going to be? Conklin hasn't done much with Wilson. Jamal Williams, if Swift's back, kind of what's going to happen there. I think James, on the other hand, Fournette probably has a big week. He's been having a lot of those. I think Hunt probably bounces back a little bit, and probably one of these rookie receivers has a big week, kind of bounces back again.
It's going to be Pickens.
It's going to be Pickens, I guess. And then
Sources.
I think this game really will probably come down. I think it'll be pretty close, and I think coming down to that Sunday night game with both Pickens for James and Claypool for Cherry going, which Steelers receiver kind of outshines the other one, and I think it really could come down to that, and I think it would be Pickens over Claypool. So,
Let's go.
Yeah, I actually had Cherry myself, so I'm fine with you taking James there. I like his matchups and his star players better. But I think it is going to be a close game again, which is why it was, the last round of picks that we did. And our final matchup is going to be What Would Jones Drew versus the Gladiators. Zach versus Ethan. I think this is a truly 50-50 matchup again. I do like Burrow versus Atlanta, Evans versus Carolina, especially if J.C. Horn doesn't play again. I like Chubb versus Baltimore and Lazard versus Washington. Not the biggest fan of Elijah Moore. Ignore that he's playing Denver, just he doesn't get targets. And not the biggest fan of Juju versus San Francisco. Bobby, who do we have this week?
I'm going to go with What Would Jesus Do?
Jones.
I don't think so. But looks like he's got Devontae Adams on his bench still. He's going to pop that guy in there for maybe DPJ. I don't know. Maybe Elijah.
Probably Elijah.
Probably Elijah, especially the matchup against
I don't
Baltimore.
know if Elijah scored points in the last month.
No. He actually went third round in my redraft league, which is kind of crazy. Don't know, but yeah, I'm going to go with him. Love Jesus.
So I'm going to take What Would Jones Drew as well. I like his player matchups a little bit more than Ethan, but again, I think this one's a truly 50-50 matchup.
Yeah, I'm going to go with What Would Jones Drew as well.
You literally can.
I do think Zach would probably win, especially with Devontae stepping in for Elijah Moore. That'll probably be like 15 to 20 points instead of 3, maybe. And then also, will Keenan play, won't he?
We've been asking that question since week 1.
Yeah,
It's on my team.
took Brian Robinson. He came back earlier from getting shot than Keenan Allen did from a pulled hamstring, so that's a little interesting. If he gets in there, if Bateman gets in there, will he play Pitts over Hunter Henry? Maybe. Ethan is, though, getting Olave back. Maybe he puts in Alec Pierce, who's had 2-3 good weeks in a row. Has looked like a really bright spot from a rookie there. I think, it's going to be really close. I'd probably lean Zach, but both of these teams this year, it's been like so 50-50 in all their matchups. Ethan always putting up a ton of points, but just getting outdone. Zach being right there, but usually starting one of the wrong guys. So this one truly up in the air. So I guess I got Ethan in this one, and I could definitely see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, that does it for matchup previews. Bobby, thank you for joining us for
No
this.
problem. I went undefeated.
Happy to hear. We'll actually keep next week. I'll put Bobby's record above here.
Sounds good.
Maybe
Maybe I'll be back.
he'll be back. But now let's go into questions from the league. Let's hop right into it. All right, we're back with questions from the league. Bobby made some good picks and matchup previews, so we're decided we're going to have him stay. He's going to read us the questions this week, and Adam and I will answer them. So, Bobby, take it away.
Okay, we got some good ones this week. To start it off, we got a great question from Zach. Is it time to start asking if What Would Jones Drew sucks?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if it's... I don't think his team sucks. Like I said, I think he has a better team than his record reflects. It's just he's not making the best decisions when it comes down to his lineup. He's 2-4 for a reason.
Yeah, I think if you look at the points for, though, he is good for more like 5th in the league. So he's still putting up decent points. Max points for still pretty good. I think a lot of it is on just the injuries. Like Keenan coming back would be huge. Same thing. I don't know if Bateman's really going to be the answer for this team, but just still having another option there would be big for this team. And then just making the right starts. I mean, if the season ended right now, he's in the playoffs, so I don't think he's done by any means. I think he's still going to be fine. It just needs a little bit of luck, a little bit of better start sit, and get a little bit healthier.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Okay. Next question is from Steve. He's got two. First off, we've got, are the Cran cooked?
Potentially. Again, it's hard to say. I mean, it is still it's definitely later in the season than you'd like to have a losing record in, but
He's 500, 3-3.
he's 3-3. I think he's just inconsistent. He had 2 really good weeks, or he started off with 2 really bad weeks, then had 3 really good weeks, and now had a really bad week. I think this time of year you definitely want to see some consistency. Yes, there are buys and injuries kicking in, so maybe.
I'm not worried yet. I think Kelsey, obviously, is going to be fine there. I think Aaron Jones, he's still RB14 on the year. Kind of had a down week last week, but he's basically had 3 catches in every game but 1. Is getting rushing attempts. He's only scored 2 touchdowns this year, and they both came in the same game. Packers offense just hasn't been putting up a ton of points like you'd expect. I think touchdowns will eventually come. Aaron Jones has had a tougher schedule too so far this year against some good run defenses. Lockett's looked good this year. Could be a big add in the receiver room that was kind of weak. I think he's not a powerhouse, but I don't think he's a bottom team. It's just he'll have some good weeks, have some bad weeks, and I think he's still very much fighting for a playoff spot.
Absolutely.
Still from Steve. He's questioning some of the trades he made so far, wondering your thoughts. He's saying that when the season had started, if he hadn't made these trades, so he'd still have Kyler, Nuke, Henry, which is spelled Henrry,
Close
and
enough.
Mike Evans, but he wouldn't have Clyde, Robert, Robbert, Woods, and Jeff Wilson. Would the record be different?
It's hard to say because I think I think we discussed this back when it happened, week 2. Maybe panic traded Henry, who's been pretty solid these last couple weeks. But then again, his team was pretty solid the weeks after that as well.
Yeah, like Clyde kind of filled in when Henry had the big weeks. I think his QB room has just been slowly getting worse, so maybe keep Kyler.
If you keep Kyler, then you obviously don't need to trade for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but Mike Evans even like a bad week last week, so it's not like it turns that one to a win, and then he was suspended for that week. I think he's probably still in the same spot, just with some different names. Henry's bye week is already done then. Like, I don't know. Probably still in the same-ish boat record-wise because Clyde had those big weeks, but maybe a little bit brighter looking in the future with Hopkins coming back and stuff. But I don't know. Tough to say.
It is tough to say.
Can't be worse than my league where Derrick Henry was traded for Tony Pollard straight up. And this is redraft, so not dynasty. Okay.
All right.
Moving on, Trevor asks, generally, what are your thoughts on running back versus wide receiver? I feel like there's been a shift in the league mindset about valuing wide receivers more, but I don't think you can win without elite running backs.
I think this comes down to like teams either have one or the other. There's very few teams in the league where I think you could say they both have solid wide receivers and running backs. That's like Trevor and Jasmus. So like right now, I have what I believe is some pretty good running backs. Don't really have the receiver room. And I think a lot of other teams are like that, where they focus on getting the running back so much that they kind of forget about the receivers, and that's why receivers are going a little bit more often now.
I think we've kind of seen it for a few years with Trevor's team having some of the best receivers, but not the running backs. I think the reason receivers are being valued more now is look at the like kind of longevity of the receivers. It's like people that are good now. Mike Evans was good in 2013. He's been good all those years. What running back in the league now was still doing anything in 2013? Most of them were in high school, college at that point, like not even in the NFL. So the RBs give you the shorter lifespan where the receivers you'll have for longer, so I get the more value there. But I do agree that it's like when you want to try to win a championship, you need those running backs, because getting 20 points from both of them is a major difference between the like 8 to 10 that like an average RB will get you. So I think you do need to get those stud running backs when you want to try to win. But like also look at Jasmus's team where he has basically 3 of the best receivers and is just dominating. It is kind of a more pass heavy league, but I think that's kind of why the switch has been more towards receiver.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, Cherry's asking, are the teams/GMs too bipolar? Do you think trades should be happening at the rate they are based on a couple weeks' performance?
So to add a little context, Jerry also asked us to give us a couple of examples maybe. I also want to do this without like flaming somebody in this league, because
Flame somebody in my league. Like I just said, Derrick Henry had 2 80-yard rushing games to start the season, when Tony Pollard caught a few extra passes and was averaging like 10 compared to Henry's 8 or whatever that was, and so they traded straight up. That doesn't really apply to this league at all, but I am still mad about it.
I'd be mad too, especially if that league is for money.
It is.
Oh God. Like you can even look at me. I'm coming into this year, I'm going, okay, I don't have my first. Adam's not going to give it back to me. And quite frankly, I made a couple of, moves where I thought, hey, if I get a couple pieces, I'll be good. So I got David Montgomery.
We are
and
filming.
David Montgomery and Deebo Samuel. So, yeah, I guess it was a little bipolar for me. Now I'm thinking, all right, who do I sell? And coming to mind first, David Montgomery, Deebo Samuel. But again, I think I'm also at the point where it's going to be, I need the right price. I'm not just going to just sell them to sell them.
I think it's a mix of a lot of things. Obviously, like Steve is an example of kind of being like, this guy didn't struggle a little bit, traded for him in the offseason, struggled a little bit, shipped him out for someone new. I think we see that with a few teams, but then there's also a ton of teams, I feel like myself included sometimes, and some other teams in the league, where you kind of wait too long. And it's like, I've had a few offers this year where it's like, this is kind of a fair deal, or I could get this and it could help me now, but I'm like, let me see more. And it's tough. Same thing like Galladay a few years ago. I was getting offers to trade him, and I was like, let me just hold him a little bit longer, hope bounce back from these bad weeks. And now he's worth nothing. Like, he's almost droppable at this point. So I think there's a thing where you could hold too long too, because it's better to be early, getting in on Jefferson 3 weeks into the season, even it's like, oh, this might be a overpay when he was a rookie, to then what he turned into. I think it goes both ways with that. And then I also feel just making trades, it's up and down. Sometimes you'll look smart, sometimes you really won't, and you gotta to like get someone at a steal, you have to buy them early. So overreacting is sometimes all right because it looks better in the long run. Sometimes it makes you look dumb. I don't think we're at an issue yet where some trades might look bad, but I don't know. I don't think it's an issue at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a big problem. I think it's, everyone values players on their team and other teams differently. And maybe it's not what you agree with. And maybe someone sees something and says, hey, if I really sharpen this up, I can take that next step. So maybe we wouldn't say bipolar. I think it's just people trying to obviously win.
Capitalize on players having some good weeks or trying to buy. Imagine you, like, I don't know, a receiver, they have a good week. Like, because Garrett Wilson had the 2 really good weeks at the start of the season, and it's like, I need to pay a ton for this guy, and now he's really come back to earth. You probably could get him for cheaper than what you did for those first 2 weeks. But also players the other way. Alec Pierce put up like 4 points. Now he's putting up like high teens. If you bought him there, and it's like,
Look like a genius.
look smart. So it could go either way with a lot of these things.
Absolutely. Any other questions, Bobby?
Okay, last question of the day comes from Adam. Good question here. If you could switch teams with anyone in the league, would you? And if so, who and why?
Yeah. I would switch teams with Jasmus because I would like to know what it's like to win more than I lose, and also have a shot to go back to the championship, something that I haven't done since the first year.
Yeah, I think obviously for this year you're looking at Jasmus, but I think in the long run, I'm not necessarily sure I would. I like my spot pretty well, having a lot of future picks where Jasmus doesn't really have much. It's kind of this year, maybe next year, and then what? I think Trevor's also in a really good spot as he has a lot of like younger talent, and I think he has like a first or something, so maybe Trevor. I still also don't hate Cherry. Cherry kind of in that rebuild, but has some good young receivers, and Kenneth Walker, good young running back on that team, and has a pick in each of these next few years, and then a ton in 3 years where he could really load up on talent. I don't know if I'd necessarily switch. I think I'm pretty competitive this year and like my future, but
I think if I wanted like a recent win, I'd say I was like Jasmus or Trevor. But for the future, I actually like my team's outlook. I have a lot of mid to late round picks this year, some more firsts in 2024. So I wouldn't necessarily say I'd switch. Maybe I would like someone with a little more draft capital, like you or Cherry. But I think for the future, things are starting to look up, and I don't want to jinx it. So, fantasy football gods, please, I'm sorry for saying something as outlandish as that.
Okay, that's all the questions I got.
And I think that's all what we got for today's episode.
I think so. Thank you, Bobby, for joining us.
Nice to meet you guys. Hope you enjoy the video.
All right, have a great one. We'll see you for week 8 next week.
And W.
Yeah, what he said.